Hey everybody, I'm Caitlin, one of the youth librarians at Skokie Public Library, and I'm here tonight with Mandy, Laura, and Shelley, three amazing librarians. Tonight, we are excited to talk about some of our favorite children's books that have been made into movies, for better or for worse. When I was a kid, one of the best things I could imagine happening was when a book that I had read was made into a movie. This was a guaranteed way to convince my extremely screen adverse parents to let me watch it. For me, it was like getting an extra chapter of a book that I loved, even and sometimes, especially if the adaptation wasn't faithful to the original. It's really compelling, right? Like watching somebody close to you do something that's extremely out of character. One of my earliest memories of this was in reading JRR Tolkien's The Hobbit with my dad when I was probably 5 or 6. My dad is an excellent narrator and he brought this book to life. Dragons, yes. Giant spiders, okay. A sword with a name, oh my gosh, yes. When we finished reading the book, my dad took me to see the 1977 animated classic, which was screening at our local library. It is a nearly perfect memory, and I have not watched that movie again because I don't want to ruin it. For me, the newer movies are not a hit. They are too long, and I think they don't capture the whimsical aspects of the story that make it fun for kids. But to be fair, I don't think anything can stack up to reading that book when you're little and your heart thrills with fantasy and possibility. I'm not saying don't watch or don't like those newer movies, just read the book first, preferably with my dad.
Caitlin, I loved that Rankin and Bass animated Hobbit. It was one of my favorites
Oh,
too.
good.
And I do think that the adage is true that the books are usually better than the movies. One of my favorite T-shirts says, "Don't judge a book by its movie," and I love it. My first book, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs by Judi Barrett, holds a very special place in my heart because it came out in 1978 when I was 4 years old and at the peak of attending library story time. All three of my storytime librarians read the book. And then a year later, my kindergarten teacher also read the book.
Wow.
The fun pictures by Judy's then husband, Ron Barrett, are very detailed. So ironically, it's not a great storytime book, but I loved hearing the story and I checked it out of my library countless times as a kid to further explore the imaginary town of Chew and Swallow, where food magically rained down on the residents. There were no kitchens, no restaurants, it just came from the sky. Of course, we all know weather is unpredictable and natural disaster wackiness and drama ensues. Hence the title, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. The stylized illustrations could have made for a very cool hand-drawn film, but when a movie finally came out in 2009, more than 30 years later, the plot was drastically changed. There was no more grandfather telling the story to his grandkids. New characters were introduced. It involved an invention gone awry instead of food naturally falling. And the computer animation was just nothing special to me. I'm sure there are fans of the movie out there, but please look for this creative book and its two sequels, Pickles to Pittsburgh and Planet of the Pies, if you want an imaginative storytelling experience. Now, many other picture books, even simpler, have been elaborated on and adapted into amazing films like The Polar Express, Where the Wild Things Are, Shrek, but I just don't think Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs is that. Love the book. Check it out.
Mandy, I have a confession to make.
I think
I
I know.
love the movie version of Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, and possibly this might appall you even more. I love the sequel, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs 2. I did really have to divorce myself from the fact that it's an adaptation of a truly excellent book, but I feel like on its own, it's weird and wonderful enough that I can dig it. But I get it. I totally get where you're coming from because I have a book and movie combo that has a similar feeling for me. So this is The Boss Baby. It is written and illustrated by one of my all-time favorites, Marla Frazee. This book was released in 2010, which is the year that my son was born, and it resonated. So here we have a very dapper baby arriving into a couple's home and promptly taking over. He is the CEO. He keeps his staff, aka his parents, running. That is until one day they crash and the boss baby learns that he needs a new motivational technique. This book is very funny and it will strike a chord with new parents everywhere. And then in 2017, a movie was developed with a pretty impressive roster of talent. I will say that both my kids and all my nephews love this movie. In fact, it inspired my youngest nephew to dress like a tiny gentleman for quite a while. That's what he called himself. I'm a tiny gentleman. It is not a hit with me. This book, I feel like, is a wink at new caregivers. It's a sly take on the way that babies really run the show. The movie takes the bones of the book and turns it into something completely new, where, because of a secret formula, babies are able to talk and convene like tiny adults. So, like you and Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, this adaptation is too far from the original story and it really doesn't work for me.
So this is The Wrinkle in Time. So the movie was interesting and had a great cast, but it's hard to capture the heart of the characters in the midst of the sci-fi fantasy romp that's the movie. I love this book so hard. I read it over and over again. Even the sequels didn't do it for me. And it was only as an adult that I realized that I was Meg. And I think so many kids see themselves in her. Unruly, passionate, sensitive, and feel unlovable because of all those big feelings, or as they call them in the book and the movie, faults, Meg's faults, even though they can be truly great qualities. This is a great book to read aloud as a family because there's so much to discuss along the way. Plus, it's a lot of fantasy and a lot of sci-fi and a lot of family and friendship. So I think it's got something for everyone.
I agree with you, Shelley. I got to tell you though, Desi and I read this book together because we saw the trailer and we thought it looked so amazing. So we were really excited to go see the movie. And I have to say, I agree. I was disappointed in how much the movie left out. I felt like you're right. I felt like it left the heart out of it. But Desi loved it. So maybe it's like Boss Baby. Like, this is a movie that is for kids and it is not for us. But like A Wrinkle in Time, I have another book that is fiercely beloved whose movie did not win me over. This is Percy Jackson. As we all know, this book does not need a lot of promotion. The multitude of kids who find it are incredibly passionate about it. There are a ton of reasons to love this series. It is a tween fantasy rooted in Greek mythology. It's got a great sense of humor. Aside from that, I really like the way that it's clearly written for kids. Percy and his friends feel very authentic to me, and that makes it easy and fun to invest in their journey. So Desi and I read the first 4 books together, and we could not wait to watch the movie. Imagine my horror when we first meet Percy and he's like 17. He's a pretty authentic 12 in the book, and I love the way that Riordan allows for this very young protagonist to go through all these trials in a very kid-appropriate way. Logan Lerman plays Percy Jackson in this movie. I have 0 issues with him aside from his age, which was a very ancient 18 when he played Percy in the first movie. So this fact alone changed the entire tone of the plot, which is unforgivable. I will say that, like Wrinkle in Time, my son loved it and he did not mind the significant divergences from the book. That aside, I just watched the trailer for the new Percy Jackson series that's coming to Disney Plus in 2024. Have you seen it?
Yeah.
Andy, you've seen it?
Yep.
I think it looks so good. Rick Riordan is heavily involved. I really cannot wait to see how it stacks up against the books. If you get a chance, go check it out. You can Google it, it's online.
All right. So let's talk about some adaptations that do work. The first one is How to Train Your Dragon by Cressida Cowell. For me, there are a few movies that I love so much that it's hard to choose between the movie and the book. Still, my desert island pick here would be the book. Plus, it's a series, so that would keep me busy much longer on my desert island. That said, the movie and the book are pretty different. What I love most about the book is the mismatch of the hero, Hiccup, Horrendous, Haddock 3, I think I said that right, between who he is, a sensitive, thoughtful, and compassionate kid, and who he is supposed to be, the mighty, courageous, brawny, unthinking son of a Viking chief. There's a similar amount of over-the-top humor and silliness in the book and the movie, but it'd be good to let kids know, if they watch the book first, that the movie is pretty different and vice versa. If you do decide to listen together as a family, which I highly recommend, you could do it as a read aloud, And the David Tennant narrated audiobook is super terrific.
Shelley, I also have a pick in which the book and the movie are ones that I liked. I liked both. Among my fondest childhood memories is my parents reading aloud the Paddington books by Michael Bond. My family loved Paddington Bear, always polite, prone to funny misadventures due to his curious nature, with an insatiable love for marmalade. Bond wrote A Bear Called Paddington in 1958, an illustrated chapter book aimed at elementary to middle school children, about a small bear who traveled to London's Paddington station from darkest Peru. The bear is found by the Brown family, kind humans, and given a home. Bond went on to write sequels, as well as picture books for younger kids. As I loved the books, I was apprehensive about the movie despite the stellar cast, but was pleasantly surprised at how well it captured the spirit of the books. The film's plot, the daughter of a deceased explorer who discovered Paddington's family in darkest Peru, and she is after Paddington for her collection, isn't from the book, but gives the movie a cohesive story, as the books are a series of loosely linked adventures. I've not seen Paddington 2, but hear good things. So get to know Paddington as a family any way you choose. First the books, then the movies, or the other way around.
I love Paddington. And I love Paddington too. All the Paddingtons.
Well, there's a fantastical chapter book that was adapted into a great but slightly different movie, and that's The Tale of Despero, being the story of a mouse, a princess, some soup, and a spool of thread. Author Kate DiCamillo actually came to Skokie Public Library for an author visit in 2003 while she was still finishing up this book, and I really love its message of love. Despereaux Tilling is a mouse who is in love with music, stories, and a princess named P. But like a lot of great tales, along with the light moments, there are many dark elements too, which is a theme, light and dark, throughout this book. I love literary rodents, mice, hamsters, guinea pigs. In terms of rats, the character of Rascuro in this book ties with Templeton from Charlotte's Web as my favorite misunderstood rat. So layered, that character. The film adaptation is beautifully animated, making use of the light and dark imagery, and it's so action-packed. Matthew Broderick does the voice of Despereaux, please. But it does lack the great storytelling and beautiful writing of Kate DiCamillo's book, and glosses over or changes things to be more cinematic and visual. And I was a little heartbroken in the theater when important things were left out or different. But by the end, I think it worked for the movie. And so I'm giving it 2 big thumbs up. And I hope it motivates viewers to go on and read the book, the family read aloud, and then watch the movie too.
Mandy, sounds great. I have a book and movie of a different genre. Fiction set in the 19th century, inspired by the author's life. The book is Little Women by Louisa May Alcott, a classic that remains treasured through today. It's a coming of age story about 4 sisters growing up in Massachusetts during the Civil War, with themes such as friendship, generosity, and being true to oneself that are as relevant today as they were when the book was written. With 4 sisters of these different temperaments, interests, and ambitions, there's lots of ways to connect with these authentically portrayed characters. Of the many film adaptations, I've seen the most recent and prefer the 1994 version over that of 2019. The actors who played Jo, Beth, Amy, and Lowry in particular in the 1994 film were just how I imagined them from the book, and the film captures the book's exuberance and warmth. I think the 1994 film improved on the book too by well-chosen edits. The book feels a little bit long at 650 pages. While I enjoyed the 2019 film, great acting, and a more modern ending that may be easier for today's audiences to relate to, the non-linear timeline I found disorienting. Share the book or the movie, and then if you enjoyed, dive into the other.
I am in agreement with you on that one, Laura. I liked the newer movie, but I thought the older movie captured the heart of the book just a little bit better. Yeah, so but they're all good. They're all good. The book is great. Okay, so onward to Holes. I think Holes was a really good movie. The acting was excellent, and it went a bit further than the book in terms of casting diverse actors into the roles before it became more popular to do that, which I really appreciate. The book, however, Holes is a whole nother level of greatness. The characters, the themes of family and friendship, not to say the relevance to today's prison disaster that is for-profit and overpopulated prisons, has a timeless feel. It still works well today. There's a glint of magical realism that pervades the story, and it's handled well in the movie, but in the book, it's one of the best uses I've seen to turn something that's a realistic-ish story into just the perfect amount of fantasy that kind of takes it to a different place. This is another one that reads aloud beautifully and would be great as an audio book for a family road trip or a read aloud to look forward to chapter by chapter, especially in winter months when you're inside a lot more.
I love Holes. I have not seen the movie though, and this is one that I should definitely check out. I also have an excellent book and movie combo. This is The Willoughbys. It is written by Lois Lowry. I absolutely love a kid-friendly, dark comedy, and this one fits the bill. So in this book, the four Willoughby children are left to fend for themselves when their gleefully neglectful parents abandon them with a terrible nanny. The children have some wicked ideas about how to improve their lives, but little do they know their parents have some wicked ideas of their own. This book is perfect for fans of Roald Dahl or Lemony Snicket, and when I saw a movie was in production with an absolute rock star cast, including but not limited to Maya Rudolph, Terry Crews, Will Forte, Jane Krakowski, and Martin Short, I could not wait to check it out. I am delighted to say that it does not disappoint. It is clever and it is silly and it has enough grown-up level comedy to make it a great choice for a family movie night. Is it as good as the book? I really, really love this one, but if I have to be picky, it lacks a little of the magic of Lowry's brilliant writing. It is an excellent movie, but the book was still better.
I also have one where I liked the movie, but the book even more. The Bad Guys by Aaron Blabey. In book one, we meet Mr. Wolf, Mr. Shark, Mr. Snake, and Mr. Piranha, a team of bad guys who decide to walk on the right side of the law. The book offers a high-interest plot with humor and well-developed characters in an easy fiction graphic novel hybrid. It's the first in a series of 15 plus books, and the DreamWorks movie is an amalgam of the books. For example, the movie's bad guys crew includes a tarantula who enters the series in book 2. There are small differences which improve on the books, like swapping Mr. Tarantula's gender to create a more diverse cast. Like the books, the movie has a stylish air that will appeal to adults who enjoyed movies like Ocean's 11, while including plenty of fart and butt jokes for the younger set. What I like better about the books is that they offer funny details and allow us to get to know the characters better. For example, in the movie, Shark's criminal rap sheet whizzes by, so we can't even read it. The book allows us to chuckle at what's listed. The books work well as independent or shared reading experiences, and then see the film as a family to continue the fun.
I love it. I've read some of the books, but I've not seen the movie. My next book that I wanted to talk about was Hair Love. And Hair Love was written by Matthew A. Cherry, who was a professional football star who also wrote an amazing book. So there are a lot of picture books that are made into full-length features, but this picture book was turned into a short film that won awards and is just so amazing. What I love is that so much is packed into the nearly wordless 6+ minute movie and the short picture book. So much heart, so much love, themes of persistence, and all with a strong anti-racist black girl magic, black dad magic message. There's comedy sprinkled throughout and a heart-filling gut punch at the end, which, if I'm honest, I think works even better in the movie. But since they're both so short, and you can watch the short on YouTube for free with ads, why not do both? For me, it would be a great family activity to read the book and watch the movie and then discuss the differences, which one people thought worked better, did you need the words in the movie that you don't have in the book, etc., that you do have in the book, etc. These are both win-wins, and they both came out around the same time. Just, yeah, brilliant, lovely. Oh, makes my heart happy.
Going off the idea that the book is usually better than the movie, I used to always try and read the books before watching the movie, but that's hard because I have a long list of books I want to read, and there are so many movies based on books. Plus, while the movie may give away things from the book, in many cases, the book has other characters, storylines, and a much richer story. So at some point, I decided I could watch a movie before I read the book. And I'm glad I've allowed myself to do that, because good movies have led me to some even greater books, like Anne Holm's I Am David, or North to Freedom, as it was originally called. I went to an educator's screening for this film, and I cried throughout. Actually, I sobbed throughout really loudly. People were looking at me. The movie was adapted and directed by comedic television and film creator Paul Feig. And look up his stuff. He's great. But it is by far his most dramatic work. This is definitely not a comedy. The critics hated this movie, which tells the story of a boy who escapes an Eastern European concentration camp. Yes, it's intense. The movie flopped at the box office, making less than $300,000 internationally, which is so little for a film. Nobody went to see it. The late great film critic Roger Ebert, he gave it a horrible thumbs down review saying, "I couldn't believe a moment of it and never identified with little David." Well, I did, and I think David's realistically portrayed as both naive and resourceful, scared but brave, as he navigates a world he knows little about. He doesn't even really know how to interact with other people, adults or kids. He's on the run and trying to get to Denmark for reasons he doesn't even understand. My heart raced throughout. And the day after seeing the movie, I went out and checked out the book, and it is so good. I Am David. Wonderful story.
It looks like Phil Boatwright liked it. It's right there. He says it's the best movie of the year.
Well, that's awesome.
There you go. You and Phil. I haven't seen this one. It looks good.
It is so good. It is so good. Take Phil's word.
Yeah, those do sound great, Mandy. For another great but less intense story, I have The Invention of Hugo Cabret by Brian Selznick. I saw the Scorsese film Hugo before reading the book. As it turns out, I'm glad I did. The movie transported me to 1930s Paris, where orphan Hugo lives in the walls of a busy train station and winds the station's massive clocks. When his life intersects with the toy maker, secrets unfold that change their lives forever. The book is part novel, picture book, graphic novel, and movie flip book. And the story is told as much with pictures as with text. To the movie's credit, the cinematography has a similar feeling to Selznick's stunning, detailed illustrations. Getting back to why I'm glad I saw the movie first, while the plot is pretty faithful to the book, the movie softened even hard-to-take characters like the station inspector in a way that the book didn't, and portrays warm relationships between Hugo and the other characters. The toy maker in the book comes across as meaner, and the toy maker's goddaughter, Isabel, is unpleasant toward Hugo for most of the book, even though she's supposed to be his friend. These differences made for a less rich story experience for me. Regardless, the book and movies are gems and may encourage your family to learn more about pioneer filmmaker Georges Méliès, on whom the story is based.
I did love Hugo. I did love Hugo. The last book I'm going to talk about has magical secrets in it. And I saw the movie before reading the book, but it wasn't the movie most people know. When I was 8, my dad and I happened upon a TV airing of a little low budget movie called Tuck Everlasting. This was 1982, and I don't think this movie was ever even screened. My dad and I both loved reading and watching movies about time and sentimentality. and we really loved this one. It wasn't quite time travel, but more about immortality and the passing of time. And it followed a lonely girl named Winnie who meets the magical traveling Tuck family, uncovering their even more magical secret. We love this and watched it a few more times before I went to the library and again checked out the book. And my dad and I both read it and we love the book. It's so gorgeously written. It's just a masterpiece. I just reread it recently and it still touches me. The more popular movie adaptation is the 2002 Disney version, which kind of like Percy ages Winnie from 10 to 17 and it becomes a romance. Yeah. It just doesn't work. The more romantic story messes with the theme and Winnie's motivation for all that she does. When I met author Natalie Babbitt, we talked about this and how her book was essentially Disneyfied. I think the newer version also lacks the charm of the novel or the simpler film, which is much truer to the book. There is one big exception, and I have to mention this. In the book, a frog plays a small but very important role. You can see the frog on the book cover there. The 1981 movie uses a turtle instead of a frog. Now, I'm not going to ruin the importance of the animal to the story, but it really does make more visually dramatic sense to use a turtle when you think of the slowness of a turtle than a frog. So you'll have to watch that movie to figure out what I'm talking about. But if you don't watch either movie, definitely read the book, Tuck Everlasting. I love it.
I love Tuck Everlasting too. This is another one Desi and I just read together. I read it when I was a kid and I, like you, I love it as a grown-up too. With all these amazing selections, there's definitely a movie night in my future, and hopefully there's one in yours too. You can find all the books and most of the movies. I don't know about that 1981 Tuck Everlasting, Mandy. So you can find all the books and most of the movies we've talked about here in the kids department. If you can't find what you need or you don't know what you need, we are here for you. In case you can't tell, Mandy, Laura, Shelley, and I, along with the rest of the youth services team, love talking about books.
And movies too.
Come see us in person and tell us your favorite book and movie adaptation.
You can also fill out a Bookmatch request and we'll put together a personalized list and email it to you. We offer Bookmatch for grown-ups, teens, and kids ages kindergarten and up. You can find a link in our chat or on our website at skokielibrary.info.
Thanks to everybody for tuning in. Join us here next month for another exciting book conversation. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.